Hey there, comic book friends. I'm Travis, and it's the Comic Book Roundtable. And
Yeah.
it's a nice small table once again, as it seems to be here lately. But that's okay. Gives a chance for everybody to talk. And I have back. It's been quite a while. We have Damien with us, Sleep Reader 66. It has been. It has been. And you've said for a couple of weeks, hey, I can do it. And then of course I haven't been around, kind of a kind of a thing when you've been available. So I'm glad it's worked out for us to be able to to do this tonight, talk books. I always enjoy talking books, and like I said, it's been a long time. So so we flipped the imaginary 3-sided coin as to what we're going to talk first, and we decided, because of course it's the books we read the least of, it seems like we're going to talk Marvel, and these are books that were basically last week, but we may talk books that were 2 weeks ago, whatever strikes our fancy as we go along.
Yeah, the only Marvel I read this week, or from last week, I should say, was Marvel 2-in-1, The Thing and the Human Torch, which, I mean, basically, I've really been enjoying this series, and this was the first kind of dud issue. So I hate to say that, but to be honest.
So what happened in this issue to make it less than the, because it really sounded to me like it was the buildup of the Fantastic Four coming back, and everybody I've heard has been really excited about it.
Well, the previous issue, they arrived on this version of Earth where the Marvel Civil War had kind of devastated things. And I was unclear whether some insane Peter Parker, there is an insane Peter Parker, whether he rules all of America or just some small section of it. And he has a little stadium that he calls Battle World, where he makes people fight each other. And that was kind of exciting. Already the art had switched to this guy named Ramon Perez, and his art is just not right for this kind of stuff. And I really noticed that in this issue, because in this issue, we skip ahead some time and they're stranded on this world, Johnny and the Thing, and both of them have completely lost their powers. And they're both kind of pitiful a little bit. And when you combine that with this artwork that seemed very, I don't know, it just lacked impact for superheroes.
Right.
I think it would have been good on some kind of indie comic or something. So it kind of was like a Black Hammer, but not as good. Heroes kind of trapped in a limbo.
Right. So when you say lost their powers, does that mean that Ben Grimm's back to being human?
Ben Grimm is a human. Wow. Women are propositioning him, and he's turning them down.
Wow.
But Johnny Storm keeps touching hot things, thinking that he's still invulnerable to heat. And they're kind of feeling sorry for themselves. They have met a alternate version of Amadeus Cho, and he's helping them try to contact other universes. And Ben, so the entire issue is them kind of moping about and hoping something will change. And then there is a splash page, a final scene where something big is going to change. I don't want to say what it is, I guess, to ruin it for people. So, I mean, because this has been a really good Marvel comic, and it's so just hopefully just a little lapse or momentary slowdown. Because I've really liked it. I really liked Chip. For me, Chip Zdarsky's writing has come into its own here. When I wasn't so thrilled by him as a writer before. Have you read anything by Chip Zdarsky?
Little bits and pieces of stuff. Yeah, I have not. I've never been super excited, so I've never jumped on anything that that he was doing. I just picked up a issue here and there. But I'm interested in this because, like I said, I've heard you guys talk so much about it and whatnot, and when they announced the Fantastic Four, I was kind of surprised that, to some degree, that he wasn't taking that over, because it sounded like that this was just a build up to that, and then they kind of take it away. It felt like it was taking it away from him, kind of a deal or whatnot. So,
we'll see. I'll keep getting it. I'm curious what will happen. I think the Fantastic Four is coming out in 2 months, 3 months. I'm not sure.
It's not like next week,
or maybe it's next week. I don't know.
It just seems like it's really soon. Maybe.
Right. That's one of the ones I'm getting through my mail subscription from Marvel, so I don't know when I will get it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna try it. I mean, I've tried Fantastic Four before. Mistakenly, the one I jumped on was the Matt Fraction Magic School Bus kind of a version of the Fantastic Four. Yeah, and it was not a good experience. And I know that there are other good Fantastic Four out there, whatnot. It's just something I've never jumped on until, here recently. I've decided I might be interested in that. So
there's been a lot of mediocre Fantastic Four. There was Matt Fraction, and then James Robinson also did an uninspired Fantastic Four.
Yeah, they canceled the book.
Hickman was really great, but
that's what I hear. Yeah,
Mark Millar tried it and didn't do that good of a job. It was okay, but so it seems like they're kind of a hard thing to do. We'll see if Dan Slott can handle it.
Yeah, and I don't know what I think about that, because I have mixed feelings about Dan Slott. Some of his stuff I enjoy, and I don't know, the Spider-Man stuff I just don't enjoy because it was too long reading what seemed to be the same note. I don't know, but
I liked his Silver Surfer, so I don't know what tone he'll take. It seems in Silver Surfer he was writing for Michael Allred, and that made me like it.
Right.
So I assume the Fantastic Four will have rotating artists and all of that, and will be less artist driven.
Yeah. Max Panther's in the comments, and he said that Fantastic Four is next week for $6, sadly.
See, that's where my subscription is good. I don't pay any extra. I just get 12 issues for the subscription.
Oh, nice. And I mean, I'll get it because it's the first issue. I think I get it like 50% off or something like that. But still,
yeah,
that makes it hard. I don't understand that. To me, it seems like it would make more sense to have more pages for less money to get people hooked. I mean, you walk into your comic book store at $6, and I think about it before. I mean, that's a trade.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many pages are in that, but I mean, that's.
Yeah. And if you're just buying it off the rack, I think you really think like you order in advance and you're probably just doing math. But if you're looking at the book and holding it in your hands, and it's a big choice to pay that much. But Marvel, I mean, in some ways, Marvel seems to be getting a little better right now. But in terms of their marketing, I don't think, their point of view on money and scalping the audience for as much money as possible, that has not changed.
Yeah. I mean, because $6 isn't a cup of coffee anymore. That's getting closer to a meal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For a single issue, that's.
And people say, "Oh, you get a lot," but really, the first issue you want to sample it to see if you want to do the rest, and if too much money.
Right. I mean, in fact, I would be more interested in, even if it was less money and less pages. So I'm just getting a little bit. Just what's the experience before? Of course, my problem is I don't have a shop to go to, so it's not like I can walk up, pick the book up, open it up, and go, this isn't for me, and put it back on the shelf. I'm just, I'm rolling the dice and hoping it's what I want. So, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, but that's what. But it sounds like that's what most of their books are going to. Amazing Spider-Man sounds like was the same way. Issue number 1 was $6. That's their $6.
They probably have a rule. We're going to do number 1 issues for a lot of money if we can. Just that quick.
Well, but I'm sure it's safe, right? It's safe to charge $6 for Spider-Man. Probably Fantastic Four too, because it's been gone so long, and it's such a it's such a staple of Marvel, kind of thing. Those are safe. I mean, if you were going to introduce, I don't know, some obscure something, some obscure comic, Giant Man, and have issue 1 be $6, you might be in trouble because that's an unknown quantity. Where Avengers and X-Men and stuff like that are all
and Wolverine or whatever else.
Those are kind of gimmies.
But I mean, DC's not so bad that way. They have some gimmicks, but they don't try to ram those number 1 prices.
The number 1, you get to like the 25 issue, and of course we're supposed to be excited that it's issue 25, so they'll bump it up a price like an annual or that sort of thing, but not the initial, I want to try this, what is it going to be kind of a deal. So yeah, for sure. Of course, this week I don't have any Marvel books.
Did you read any last week?
Trying to think. What did I read last week?
I just thought you might have remembered.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Small week, I think.
Yeah, it was. I've been enjoying all the Marvel books I've been reading. None of them have been disappointing. I'm surprised with like the Immortal Hulk. The first issue I wasn't 100% sure on, but since then I really like the formula of it. It's been fun. Ms. Marvel has gotten back on track. What it feels like is a good book again. Whereas for a while it was kind of, it wasn't that it was bad. It just wasn't speaking to me. I guess. And I know the book isn't geared towards me, so that, isn't a big deal. But
Willow Wilson the whole way through?
Yes. Yeah, it has been. And I'm curious, I'm assuming she's going to keep writing it, even though she's going to be doing Wonder Woman soon.
Yeah, I assume so too. I haven't saw anything about her becoming exclusive to DC.
Yeah, because I just can't imagine that book being written by somebody else. Mind you, there was an issue that, I don't know if it was just the last issue or the issue before that was the quote unquote 50th issue, if you kind of followed along through all the runs. And in that, there were guest writers that wrote little bits and pieces. And most of them did a pretty good job of keeping the voice consistent. Right. So, and with a book like that, where literally the character has been created and her entire voice is solely basically been written by one writer, that feels really important because it almost has an independent feel to it. You know what I mean? Like if suddenly, some independent book we've been reading this whole time, like Deadly Class, were to suddenly have a completely different writer writing it, would that change all the voices and stuff? So.
Right. A comic that has its own voice does seem like an independent comic. And then.
Right. Well, because, those of us who've been reading long-term of, the corporate comics, clearly, except for a few runs, they're changing all the time kind of a thing. So.
Right. Well, it'd be interesting. It seems to me that DC is trying to poach as much talent as possible right now. And sign a lot of people to those exclusives. So I wonder if they will make a move on Willow Wilson.
Well, it's also interesting, like in the case of like, when they got Bendis, like, okay, they got Bendis, and Bendis works with, it seems like 3 or 4 artists with a lot of the stuff he does. Right. You're kind of like, well, suddenly now all those people are doing stuff. Alex Maleev is suddenly doing covers. He's going to be doing some interior work, which he didn't work for DC. I don't remember him ever working for DC. But just, suddenly these people who work with Bendis are now, suddenly cropping up places. They may not be exclusive, but now suddenly they're doing work where we never saw them before. So that's, would be, is interesting. So I don't know, if when these people come over, if they bring people with them and whatnot, that's, is curious.
I mean, writers are sometimes almost like editors on the artist level, where they seem to pick the artists now. It's almost the art of being a successful writer is convincing your editors to let you choose good artists to work with you, it seems.
Well, sure. Or who you work well with. Right. I mean, there's, I kind of like that though. I mean, part of me really likes the fact that there are, teams of people, unless you're tired of that. I mean, it's like, Mr. Miracle, for instance, with King and Jared's on that. I mean, I've seen on Twitter not very long ago, Jared was saying that he right now can't imagine doing work that was by somebody else. I mean, because people keep asking, well, why don't you do your own stuff? Why don't you become a writer artist? And he's like, because this works too well. I mean, I'm liking this way too much to, choose to do something different. So yeah. So for sure.
Somehow we went from Marvel 2-in-1 to all of that. But
yes,
shall we jump into DC?
Let's just jump into DC. What do you want to talk DC wise?
Well, I know we both read Justice League Dark, and I'm curious what you thought of it. I kind of struggle. I'm not sure what I think of it. I guess I need give it another issue in a way.
Exactly. So the things I am excited about, of course, I like the magic superhero world anyway. So always excited by that. I like these characters. What we get of them, I think the voices are pretty good.
That's true. I hadn't thought of that. You're right. Each character has their own voice, and that's maybe one of Tinian's strengths these days.
Yeah, Langstrom is a little weird for me. I mean, he is he's working for Argus now.
Man-Bat, for anyone who doesn't know.
Man-Bat. Yeah. And he's working through Argus to work off his crimes or whatever, because he is a brilliant scientist and geneticist and whatnot. And in it,
Right.
in it, he is, when we first see him, he is got just a vampire bat head.
Oh, was that vampire bat? I didn't even realize.
Well, I don't know. It's a vampire. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's just.
Yeah,
So
he's
got
a bat body and a bat head. I thought that was clever because later it's revealed, oh, I could go with my old school serum.
Right. Right. Where he's just basically informing you that he's, the reason he went that way is because, he continues to have some of the, some of the extra sensory of a bat.
Right.
So maybe that would work better for him. I'm not sure how, as a scientist, that works better for him, but.
Or maybe he can't completely unbecome a bat at this point. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then there's a scene where Wonder Woman says, Kirk, I might need you to go to be a bit more threatening. And he says, I have a batch of the classic formula with me now.
Right.
And injects himself.
Yeah, shoots himself up. Cool. Yeah, it shoots himself up and then becomes the slathering, man bat. So I like all the characterization and whatnot. My problem is with lots of superhero group books starting out, you got to build the team. And nothing about this feels any different than a million other of that kind of book, right? So that part of it felt very dull.
Right. Well, there must be different ways to build a team. This building a team was there was one kind of action scene in Zatanna's theater, but other than that, it was her and other characters walking around and talking to each other.
Right.
Wonder Woman comes into a room, talks to a monkey. Wonder Woman comes into a room, talks to a man bat.
Yeah.
And then there's another scene with Constantine talking to, was that Zatanna he was talking to or someone else? I think it was
Zatanna. Yeah.
So Zatanna hasn't joined the team yet, but she's kind of in the background, I guess.
Yeah. Well, clearly by the end of it, it definitely seems like that she's probably on board because of how bad it is.
And there's a bunch of other people in, what's his name, Baron something's house from the what are they called? The Dark Force? No, it's that old Night Force.
Yes.
So the Night Force house, that has a bunch of people hanging. It was a kind of a cool scene trying to figure out who all these characters were, which I couldn't figure out who all of them were. But
yeah, I couldn't name them all either, which kind of surprised me.
But it was just one more scene of a group of people sitting around talking. The artist, drew it beautifully, but I think that's my big problem. It felt ponderous. It's like all these people are talking. James Tynion seems to have a very complicated set of things going on in his head, but I feel like I'm having to work too hard to decipher it by just reading all this conversation.
And I think the other problem is relying on a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do in this comic. It's the no justice. They're kind of playing off of that, and that part doesn't set well with me because did you read the No Justice?
No, I never finished it. I bought it all, but I did not finish it.
Good call. No reason to, and that's part of the thing about the book that I don't like is because that was not a good story. I didn't enjoy that at all, and so relying on that to be the threat in a sense. I mean, I don't
like that very much, but I take it to be a MacGuffin. You can just say, well, the source wall's been breached.
Right.
And every comic can use that idea that the source wall's been breached for their own purposes, I suppose.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of inside baseball here, too. I mean, if I didn't know enough about the source wall problem and that stuff.
See, I didn't read the
obscure to me, and I might felt like I was missing something important. Yeah. Although I don't think it is that important, but and just figuring out who Baron Winters is and what this house is that they're in and all of that would be very even though I have a pretty deep DC knowledge of sorts of parts of DC, it felt like it was hard going that way.
Yeah, or I mean, I guess, or you read it and you go, okay, it just is what it is, or you're like us and you want to know what all those little bits and pieces are, or if you're deep enough in it, you know what some of that stuff is. I mean, like the stuff with Detective Chimp, the fact that he's also the Nightmaster now. I didn't know that. That was a surprise to this book for me. So
Nightmaster was something I don't know what it is. So that one puzzled me too.
Did you read did you read the dark stuff, the metal?
No, I bought a trade of it and I haven't read it yet.
Okay, because I mean, so I'm assuming that happened there, or they're just saying it happened there. I'm not sure which. I'm not sure if it actually happened in the comic, in those comics, or if they're just saying that that's where it happened.
But is the Nightmaster a character that goes back into DC
Yeah.
lore? Because I
Yeah.
missed that particular one.
Yeah. Last place I saw him significantly used was Shadow Pack, for instance, that run that went for a while. He was in that.
I never read it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so it's like I said, it's such an interesting little kind of an odd, thing to throw in there. Detective Chimp is potentially packing that sword around and whatnot. Like I said, I like the characters. I thought the characterization of them was well. It's just it's hung on a not so exciting kind of a
the plot framework so far.
Yeah,
I would say. I guess I love the idea of Wonder Woman and the Swamp Thing on the same team. Like that really tickles my fancy.
Yeah.
I thought the Chimp would be fun, but so far I've heard of Detective Chimp, but I don't think I've ever read a Detective Chimp comic.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I like the Man Bat in here more than I expected. So I'll definitely stick with it for a while.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's like I said, for me, it's one of those comics that it's because it wasn't awful. Unless it gets awful, I'll pick it up because, like I said, I'm a sucker for all these characters. I enjoyed the art, so we'll see where the actual story itself takes me, and can that become more gripping than what it was. Luke, Comic Central is saying that it did happen in the Metal comic. The Nightmaster does get killed in that. So, for those people who read that might have more meaning or whatever. Something I find interesting.
Buzz at all was my problem.
Right. Well, he's a pretty drab looking character. I mean, he wears kind of grayish blue chainmail that covers his entire body. It's like that, Saxton era, 15th century, where it's just his face.
He protects some other dimension. Is that what he does? I thought I gathered.
Yes, that's part of what he does. I mean, and he runs this interdimensional bar that he's responsible for, and he's just kind of an in charge of the magic world kind of thing. He's kind of used to be as a bar, your typical bar tends to be like the focal point of a town or whatever,
right?
Except the magical version of that, and so he ran the bar too and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, at least from what I know of him.
My sense here is that Alec Holland is more the representative of the Green than Alec Holland. Like I didn't feel there was any Alec Holland in this version of the Swamp Thing yet, anyway.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that there's been more and more of him as kind of that way, though, that he is the Green more than he is Alec Holland.
Right. Well, they were pushing him that way, although I'm trying to think of what he was like in that that special they did of him, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say. Anyway, I find it interesting that he's maybe less.
So you've read? I mean, you've read quite a bit, like Detective Comics, right?
Yes, although I'm not up to date on that. I kept buying them, but fell off.
Okay, but anyway, you've read some of the of Cinema Tinian's work there, and in that book we get these kind of double page. I don't know what you want to call it. It's not a spread. And I thought it was the artist to start out with. I thought it was the artist that he was working with. That was just how they like to do stuff, where you get this kind of couple panels across, across
the two-page layout, I guess you could call it, or something.
Right. Well, every single one of his books has 2 pages that are that way. It's almost formulaic. It's almost like why is it when I want to remember somebody's name? I can't remember it. Did a lot of Batman art with Grant Morrison and then went on to write Batman himself too and do the art for it. Tony Daniels. Tony Daniels. Like every single Batman comic of Tony Daniels, the second page is a splash page. Like every single Batman comic, it's a splash page. So it's like this formula thing. So I always kind of thought that was the artist that did that. So it must be something that he likes to write because, like I said, this issue has, I think, two spots where it has that kind of a page. Yeah, here's another one where they're in the bar, kind of thing. And I think it's an interesting call for the writer to do that, to make that kind of a layout.
Yeah, it is interesting that the writer is in charge of that, or can be in charge of that. I actually like that kind of thing because I feel like it takes advantage of modern publishing where you can, with the full bleed and everything.
Right.
So it's interesting. The times I don't like it is occasionally you'll see it by some artist who's not made it very clear that you're supposed to read across.
Exactly.
Problem in this one.
Yeah.
This artist is wonderful. I forgot who he is.
Martinez Bueno.
I've never heard of him before.
Me neither. Coloring's awesome on it too. So yeah, I mean,
it's really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm not like blown away by the comic, but I'm not put off by it either. It's just, but I know it's lacking something. Yeah.
And maybe Tinian will move all his pieces in place and it will get better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see where it's going to go because there's a lot of ways it can go with all those other cast of characters that are, all those magic, that big group of magic people and whatnot. Are we going to see them again, or are they going to just ultimately be dysfunctional because they're too busy arguing with each other to actually be effective to stop the destruction of, of magic and whatever? Or yeah, it'll be.
Yeah, because they're not really magic characters except for, well, Swamp Thing's kind of a magic. He's a dark character. I don't know if I think
he's spiritual. I don't know that he's magical, but I would consider him spiritual because of the whole, the red, the green,
right?
And so I think that falls under it. One thing I did like about the comic is kind of the, here's the heroes that are in the light, that kind of reference, and here's those of us. I mean, because there's a giant cast of like, I don't know, D level.
Right.
Magic characters, right. Dr. Occult and all those people that kind of, are, creepy in the corners kind of thing. And then you have Wonder Woman, who technically comes from a magic world with her magic lasso and the whole I Ride a Griffin, kind of, stuff.
Right.
But I think it's interesting listening to them all talk about the fact that, well, she's this. It's also simple for her. Right. I like those aspects of the story too. So there are things about it. Like I said, I do.
Right. These are not the characters like Constantine or Baron Winters who deal in the dark dealings of actual magic. Like Swamp Thing doesn't always need someone like Constantine to come tell him what's going on. He's not connected to that dark part of the magic at all.
Right. My understanding is that Constantine's in every single issue. That Tinian is, because people have asked him, is he going to be in it? And I was kind of hoping he wasn't going to be quite honest.
Right.
Because I don't like this established relationship that they've decided since they moved Constantine to the regular DC universe with Zatanna, that they're kind of like have been a couple. I just don't care for that. But he's around, I guess, in every issue. He shows up.
He was so much in the other Justice League Dark in the New 52. It would be nice to take a break from him.
Right. Well, because there's so many other things. There's so many other characters.
Right.
So, yeah, but like I said,
that one through.
Yeah. So I'm reading Detective Comics. You said you were kind of behind on Detective Comics.
Yeah. In fact, I think I stopped getting it when I saw the writer was changing. But maybe I hear this run has been good with Hill, or
I don't know. There are aspects of it I like. It's got Black Lightning in it, who I do like the character. But I feel like it's that Hill is almost telling the same story to some degree that that Tinian started out telling. Really? Batman needs somebody to school the kids.
Oh, yeah.
So now he's picked Black Lightning to do it, because Black Lightning, well, he is a school teacher by normal profession. So let's have him, school the kids. But while in the attempt of bringing him in to do that, some higher level threat shows up to mess with Batman. And so Batman's like, no, you children stay locked up in my penthouse and I'll take care of this myself, because this entity is going after all of Batman's sidekicks. Everybody who wears the bat, he's going after because they make Batman weak, and Batman needs to be strong.
That's a very familiar story too.
Right. So, I mean, like I said, that cover is kind of cool. I mean, there's things about it that are cool. Things I don't like in this, Barbara Gordon is one of the kids. And I think that's a disjustice to the Batgirl character.
Right.
I mean, even this incarnation of Batgirl, she is her own person. You know, she may not be the Batman, but she's not one of the kids either.
Right.
You know, they're not throwing Dick Grayson in the penthouse with the rest of the kids. To me, it seems ridiculous that she would be part of that. So as the story goes in this, they're in the penthouse. They've been told by Batman they're not supposed to leave. You know, Black Lightning's telling them you can't leave because he says we're not supposed to. And they're going to war game how to save Batman anyway. And then ultimately, you know, they're going to leave the penthouse and help save him. But so I'm not. Now I don't know. This hasn't been that exciting. I don't necessarily care where it goes to from here. A couple issues ago, it was just a single one issue shot. That was a fun one and done story. I'm looking forward to the Tomasi, you know, coming up. That's going to be a detective comic, you know, where he's actually a detective and
yeah,
see what
I'm really looking I will definitely jump back on with Tomasi.
Yeah,
really looking forward to that because I've always liked Tomasi's Batman.
Yeah. So, you know,
and is that still in the middle of an arc?
Yes, I think there's like 2 more issues, I think.
And then is Tomasi next, or is someone else coming on?
I think it's Tomasi next.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I was excited for this because I was excited. Oh, you know, because they were talking Black Lightning. I thought maybe, you know, Batman would be out of the book altogether. We get a Black Lightning story, and we're not really getting that. You know, it's still a Batman story with this distraction of let's house the kids in a room and stuff. So, yeah, I don't know.
You almost wonder when someone like that, has he read the most recent issues, if he's doing that plot over again? You know,
right.
Feel from something 5 or 6 years ago, not 2 years.
Right.
1 to 2
Right.
years.
I would assume he has because he was because I've seen him on Twitter talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like he must. You would think it would be easy enough for him to at least read.
Yeah.
Run.
What else? What else you got DC wise?
Are you reading the Terrifics?
I dropped the Terrifics because I have not been enjoying it at all. So
yeah, I'm kind of sticking with it out of stubbornness. It's like, well, it's Jeff Lemire and it's playing with the Fantastic Four, and he's good at this retro superhero stuff in other places. So why can't he do it well here? But
so here's my question about it. So all of these new generation comics, or they're calling them something, right? That is spun out of the whole. They're all artist driven. So they're being done, quote unquote, the Marvel way. So the artist is driving the story by his art. Right. Is that part of the problem?
Well, given they're on their 3rd artist in 6 issues, I think that even exacerbates the problem.
Really? It's not Doc?
No, he did, I think, 2 issues, and now it's Bennett. I forget. And before that, it was
it started out a few issues.
Rice?
I can't remember who it was.
Ron
Rice. Was supposedly filling in until Doc got done with his other work, and then Doc was supposed to be the comic.
I don't know if Doc will come back. I can't say the issues with Doc were that much better.
The art looked better, but as far as reading reading a story that I was excited about, blah.
Yeah, and this what's his Joe Bennett? The name's vaguely familiar, but I don't think he's a superstar artist or anything. But he does a good job, and the colors are pretty good. But the story is it continues to be just a bunch of stuff. And then I think most notable is at the end, they reveal that someone named Dr. Dread is behind all kinds of problems they've had.
Wow.
And he's a really badly designed Dr. Doom knockoff.
Right.
And so the only interesting thing is Dr. Dread is in the world of Tom Strong. And so now at last, maybe all this Tom Strong stuff we've been teased will be happening. But they're in a different dimension, and Dr. Dread, for some reason, is telling them he's going to go get Tom Strong. But it's just, I don't know. It's not clicking at all. And I feel like all of these New Age of Heroes things, there may be an art to doing this artist first thing, but they have not they've just followed this idea of putting a superstar artist on the first few issues and then switching off.
Right.
And it's been kind of a mess, I think. Because a lot of decent seeming writers have seemed pretty bad here. Like Robert Venditti was doing one of them that I read for a while. Anyway, yeah.
So I just kind of wonder if the whole truly art driven, where basically I'm assuming they have some loose plot line of some sort, and then the artist knocks out 20 pages of what they want to do that's based loosely around that plot line, and then the writer goes back in and attempts to throw dialogue in that makes sense to drive the story. I don't think it works in the modern era, to be honest. I think it worked back in the day with Kirby and Ditko and all those people, because two reasons. One, I think largely comics were simpler then. I think we expect a much more complex story now than what we did out of those books that were before.
Right.
And I think that there was a lot more narrative dialogue in those old books, and we don't get that either, because you don't want to cover up superstars blank backgrounds with narrative boxes that would drive the story.
And they were always trying to teach the artists how to tell stories the way Jack Kirby did. So they had kind of a template that you were supposed to follow as an artist.
Right.
And so back in the old days, Stan Lee would always make the artists work over Jack Kirby layouts for a few issues, so they got the feel of how Jack did it. So it was based on a very specific way of doing it.
Right.
Now, I do remember hearing an interview saying that Matt Fraction saying he did Hawkeye plot first. And that turned out very well with David Aja.
Really? Wow.
Maybe I'm remembering wrong. I know he did something, and I thought it was Hawkeye.
It could be. It could be. And because I know that that David's a strong storyteller himself. So I don't,
Right. With the right artist, and maybe an artist, like a lot of the artists they put on these new age of heroes were kind of 90s style artists for lack of
the Jim Lees. Right.
I mean, they're better than most of them are better than what I remember from the 90s, but still there's something there. And part of that 90s style was developed when you realized if you did big splash pages all the time, you could sell your original art for a lot of money, which has nothing to do with the storytelling.
Exactly.
Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby had no idea they could sell their original art. So they were just telling the story panel by panel.
Right.
And so I noticed that a lot when I was reading Damage. It was just endless double page spreads of this giant hulking figure smashing through things, because that will sell well in the original art market.
Well, but that isn't a good storytelling device.
It's very bad storytelling device.
So I'm leery now. If I hear something is being pitched to me as being done the Marvel way, or and I'm not by any means am I saying that artists are clearly part of the story. They are the storytellers too. There's no doubt in my mind that they make or break a lot of comics. They elevate a lot of comics, and I'm sure, depending on what the relationship between the creators all are, they elevate each other or whatever kind of a thing. But I don't know.
And there's different levels of collaboration. I mean, I think a lot of those like 70s Marvel comics, when it wasn't Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, were pretty intense plot summaries before the artist got to work on it. And then I remember reading that when Jim Lee became a superstar, he started insisting that Chris Claremont not give him plots. And Chris Claremont just had to come in and write the script. And I make the Jim Lee association here with this.
Right.
I wonder if they've got the right way of doing, the plot first kind of story.
Right. And there's always conversations out there about the push and tug about, right now writers seem to be the superstars of comics and whatnot. And in the back of my head, I'm like, I get the complaint, but I don't know.
Books kind of prove that that's the right way to go, because they've botched it.
Yeah. Because what the other Terrifics that I read, they were nonsensical. They just like, randomly the war wheel shows up out of nowhere and they panic around it. So it's a bunch of pictures of the war wheel and them, stretching and making all this stuff happen and whatnot. And at the end of it, it was pointless. It was absolutely pointless. There was no point to it by the time you were at the end of the issue. And I'm just like, I can't read this. Those characters all intrigue me. I have always enjoyed those characters. And then, man.
Right. It's got to be worse too if the artist knows he's only on for 2 issues. What kind of commitment does he have to this story?
Right.
He's going to be on to some other story later, Superman with Bendis or something. Yeah. So I think that's what Doc Shaner did. He did one of those Superman issues.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where he'll show up next, but
yeah.
Okay, other
let's talk other. So I'm reading Mother Panic. This is issue number 5. So there's one more issue after this. I like the comic. I like Jody Houser as a writer. I'm interested in what she has to say in the book. Mustafa is a great artist too. We've got Mother Panic and her murderous sidekick are in this other dimension where the bad guys have had control from her book. I can't remember what they're called. Drawn up like a syndicate or something like that. They've controlled and gentrified Gotham. I like everything about that. If you're going to explore Gotham, this is an interesting way to have a completely different Gotham. So it's not just simply a Gotham without Batman. It's a Gotham where it has been everything that what we typically consider Gotham has been basically been rooted out of it. And so there's this, different evils. In this, there's like whatever the big botanical gardens that are in Gotham, their version of Central Park. Ivy and Catwoman basically control that. They hide in there and they have a group of kids in there that they try to keep safe, and they just try to survive whatever is going on outside of it, kind of a thing. And Red Hood, the last true Robin, is in this, and he's crazy. I mean, he's almost like a cult leader, and he's talking about the Batman coming back in kind of mythical kind of level kind of thing and whatnot, and he's getting people to buy into that. But they rush through a lot of stuff because there's only one more issue and this is done, because all the Young Animal stuff, and over the weeks you're going to hear me complain about this a lot more as all these books are coming to an end. This was interesting. I mean, part of me was frustrated with the fact that they kind of stopped the interesting plot that was going on and then had the Milk Wars thing. But this was kind of an interesting way to kind of throw it into the future. If no one had been there to stop them, this is what it would look like.
Right.
But I feel like they could spend 50 issues exploring this new Gotham and slowly her working her way into, being the hero that she doesn't want to be, but end up being it anyway. But instead they have to hurry. It feels like it to get to the end. So lots of cool stuff in it, but it just feels to me like it's a race now to come to some sort of conclusion.
The whole Young Animals thing kind of puzzles me. It's like they seem to just commit suicide with the Milk Wars.
Yeah.
It's like they did the Milk Wars and then they gave up or something. I don't understand what the thinking behind the whole thing was. See,
I don't either. I mean, even if Way is going on his way, he's got to go do Umbrella Academy or whatever. He doesn't want to commit to overseeing all this stuff anymore. So what? I mean, if people were still reading the books and enjoying them, I don't understand why we weren't moving forward, because pretty much all of them have felt very truncated with this 6 issues after the Milk Wars have been really kind of like they started with an idea and then, then suddenly, oh crap, we have to get it done. On social media, they all act like, oh, this was always the plan.
Right.
It not a single one of these books feels like it was the plan though.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I enjoyed Milk Wars. I thought Milk Wars was a fun, goofy romp. I did not realize that it was the nail in the coffin for all these books though.
Right.
So
Yeah, maybe someday we'll learn, you know, from Gerard Way or someone what really happened.
Right.
Did he have a falling out with DC? Were the sales so bad? But if the sales were bad, why did they do the Milk Wars? And I don't know. It was a strange move.
Yeah. Yeah. So I said, I don't know. To me, it felt like, I mean, I know you get whatever you get for going to a con, right, and listening to creators talk and whatnot. But I was on multiple DC panels I went to that had Jody Hauser and Mustafa on it, and they were talking, and they sounded like they had big plans. Oh, I'm getting to, we get to recreate in a completely different way all this stuff.
Right.
It's there, but they're not getting to do a whole lot with it. And it did not feel like that when I was, because I had conversations at tables with both of them too, kind of talking about what this was, as much as they could tell me at the time, because of course the book wasn't out yet, about what it was going to be like. And it just did not feel, it didn't feel like 6 issues and done.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So maybe the rug got pulled out from under them after 2 or 3 issues, and they had to wrap it up.
Yeah, could be. At any rate, is what that is. Got any other DC books you want to talk about?
I have 2 more. Maybe I can speed it up. There was Hellblazer, which maybe I'm suffering Stockholm syndrome. The art didn't quite bother me as much, although I still think it's the artist who really ruined this story.
Yes.
And I wonder if that affected Tim Seeley's writing as he went along, if he stopped trying so hard. But there were some very cool twists and stuff at the end of this story. I actually thought, oh, that's pretty clever. This is pretty clever. I think I haven't read the big long Hellblazer opus from Vertigo. I read a few of the early issues, and at the time it wasn't my Hellblazer because I wanted him to be from Alan Moore's Hellblazer.
Right.
But so I just don't know. But then I've read in and out since the New 52 bits and pieces, and I get really tired of, oh, John, he's a bastard. Yes, I'm a bastard. I ruin it. It's become their only character beat for him or something.
Well, and see the thing, and the thing is in the old stuff, he is to some degree, but he has actual redeeming qualities that survive through it, and he doesn't spend his time every issue walking down an alley smoking a cigarette and waxing about the fact that he's a bastard.
Right.
And this newer books, that's every book.
Right. His being a bastard should be in the background, what he does, not just, the thing that he and everyone else says about him.
Right. Right.
But I liked Tim Seeley as a writer, and I'm kind of sad he didn't get a really good shot at doing Hellblazer. There you have it.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the art. For me, it was the art all along. That was the big thing. It just not the right match. I don't have a beef with that artist in particular. It's just not the right match for what that book should be.
And I felt like the artist and maybe the colorist were not ready for prime time yet.
Yeah.
The colors actually look a little better in this issue too, but anyway, it's the end. And then the other DC I read was Action Comics 101 or 1001, which there's an interesting thing. It was with an artist I love, Patrick Gleason, and a writer that, sometimes I consider good. And the art is not bad, but somehow I just felt reading it that the two of them don't click that well. It might have been my imagination or whatever, but it seemed to be the least compelling Bendis issue that I've read so far of Superman. And there's some pretty cool double-page spreads here. And it does contain a cool idea of this. Did you read it? Did you read it? I'm assuming you didn't.
No, I'm not reading Action at all.
It contains a cool idea of this some kind of mobs or syndicate of criminals that have worked out a very complicated way to make Superman not know they exist and not be aware of their activities, which is very hard to do. So it makes them interesting. So I'm kind of looking forward to that part going forward. I thought that Bendis would be really good at the Daily Planet stuff, and that just seemed very stiff and uninteresting. but there was overall this sense that maybe he and Gleason aren't the best of partners. Maybe they'll warm up to each other. And just in my general feeling of all the Superman Bendis books is he wants to tell a story with so many braids and plot threads, and I'm starting to worry how many of them he can keep under control and how many he'll come back to and how many will just be thrown out there. I don't know. Did you try Man of Steel?
No, but I'm reading Superman.
So well, then you probably vaguely know that Lois and John are supposedly off traveling the cosmos with this person who's supposedly Jor-El,
right?
Which was odd in itself, but I assumed we would see what their adventures are. That sounds pretty exciting, but so far no sign that they're going to show us that stuff.
Nope, just to get rid of them.
Just to get rid of them, it seems, I don't know, a waste.
Right.
Plus, I probably, like most of us, we liked when there was John and Lois around, and the whole.
And that's what to me that was the charm of Superman, for the Superman that I was reading, because I'm not a big Superman fan, so you have to do something to give it some charm, and his family, him being part of it,
right,
was what I enjoyed. So I don't know how long I'll be on Superman with it,
and I don't know how much. I guess this kind of is separate from Superman, but I just assume that Bendis will make it all one story over time. Right. So it might be hard to read just one of them.
Right.
So that's all my DC. Did you have any others?
The only other one I did pick up Wonder Woman. This is issue number 51.
Is that Tim Robinson?
No, that's why I picked it up. And actually, I forgot that I had ordered it. Because I knew I was contemplating it, because I like Wonder Woman's character. I didn't like the Robinson run. What I read of it, did not enjoy it at all. So this is the first issue that Steve Orlando is on the book, and he's going to be on it for 3 or 4 issues, I think. And then, like we talked about earlier, G. Willow Wilson will take over the book, and I'm definitely getting on the book when she's on, just to see what she does.
I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. So this was like a one and done issue. It's really interesting. It starts off with a scene that happens in issue 24 of Wonder Woman. And like I said, we're on 51 now. So they reference back to a scene that happened right after. It was a scene that happened right after Rutka and crew got off the book. It was one of the first stories out of that. There was a woman supervillain who was trying to kill Wonder Woman by shooting her at point blank range, that she ended up beating and hauling off to prison. And this whole story is Wonder Woman showing up at this prison in the Antarctic to visit this woman who is angry at her, and she does not know why, and whatever. And she just keeps revisiting, this woman year after year, month after month. So the entire story is her showing Wonder Woman as the compassionate person. She's not just a warrior. She's also, a person of healing and peace and all that. So she wants to try and figure out, why is this woman so angry, and work through that. And it takes years. And this whole issue is her just over the years slowly working through, what was your childhood like? This is what my childhood was like. You see, we are so different from each other, despite the fact that I grew up on Paradise Island. It wasn't like it was all paradise for me, kind of thing. And I liked it. I mean, it wasn't like some big grand superhero book, but it was a great story of the other parts that make up Wonder Woman that are sometimes easily forgotten. So it was an enjoyable story for the kind of compassion. Them showing Wonder Woman as being a compassionate person, working through the stuff this woman, and it has a happy ending at the end of it. After a couple of years, she does get out, and but after they work through a lot of stuff. So, yeah.
Well, I like the idea of some one shots. That's always nice,
right? And I don't know, I mean, I think that Orlando's on the book for, like I said, a few more issues. I don't think that they have anything to do with
the Robinson run.
Yeah, and I don't think they have anything to do with this story. I mean, I really do think this was kind of a one-and-done thing. There were parts about the art that I liked, and parts that weren't. I like their faces; they have some good quirky faces and some great expressions. Otherwise it was just, it was what it was. It was serviceable for what, for the story that was there and whatnot. But I don't know. It was just really good. It was really good. They did a really good job of kind of Wonder Woman basically slowly, breaking this other character down, to, get her walls down so they can have a real conversation about stuff. And it's literally just a hop through time. This is the 20th visit. This is the 30th visit. This is the 51st visit. So it's like a couple, a page or a couple panels of visits, just her slowly working through all the different stuff and whatnot to get her. What's interesting is clearly this is over years because they show Wonder Woman in different costumes. At one point, she's wearing the black pants from the from the pre-52 going into the 52, kind of a run. So they've got her wearing a bunch of different, different outfits depending on the era of what was going on and whatnot. So yeah,
I mean, fun comic you could pick up anytime you happen to see it at a comic book store because it's not slotted in. You can just enjoy it by itself.
Right. Right. And it worked. And the one and done comic, almost to some degree feels like a lost art.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And so it was cool. And that's it for my DC comics.
Me too.
Then I don't know if there's any striking DC news that I can.
I haven't been.
Hey, what do you think of the paper? Have you noticed the new paper, the non-glare?
Was it all? I feel like a lot of mine still had the glare.
See, this Wonder Woman is flat. It's got that flatter paper.
Hellblazer, the Terrifics still have it. Or maybe no, the Terrifics may have the flatter paper.
Yeah, my stuff has been slowly shifting.
Justice League Dark, which paper would you say that was? It's hard for me to tell. I think it's still kind of slick.
Is it? I guess I didn't notice on that one.
I mean, I really noticed it on Superman #1.
No, I think that's the flatter paper, even in the Justice League, the Justice League Dark. Well, no, maybe. I don't know. Sometimes I have a hard time. Some comics it's really obvious, and others it's a little harder.
Really obvious in Superman last week, but
I kind of like it.
I like it in general. Yeah, now that I think you're right. The Justice League Dark has it.
Yeah. So I think they're clearly all shifting over to that. So
yeah, I think that's a good move. I mean, I don't know if that's cheaper or more expensive paper, but either way, I like it better. Yeah,
because I have to admit, comics had gotten awfully shiny, and I spent a certain amount of time tipping them one way or the other to get the glare off of it, so I can. Yeah. So I can read it, let alone for camera stuff where you're trying to show something to get the glare off of it. So yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a good compromise. It's not like newsprint or anything, but
right.
And I kind of compared it to Baxter paper before, but I think it's actually not. It's not as thick and absorbent as Baxter paper.
Right. So it doesn't have the bleed, because the Baxter paper was definitely a higher quality paper when that first came out. I remember that being an exciting thing, but it still had the bleed. You didn't get a nice crisp line. It still would. You can see the fuzzy black. So
yeah.
For sure. Like I said, I can't think of anything DC news worthy. So
yeah, I'm still pondering whether to subscribe in advance to DC Universe. I know you talked about that on the podcast with
yes. Yeah.
That's probably old news now. That's
I'm gonna jump on and we'll see what I'm sure. I actually I'm back and forth on that whole thing. I keep talking with the kids about it because they're interested in the all the multimedia stuff, the shows and whatnot. I'm inclined to think what I'll end up doing is I'm going to wait, until there's a season of whatever we want to watch, and we've got the time to watch it, and I'll pay for it for a month or whatever, and me and the kids will binge watch whatever it is we want to watch and whatnot. But I am curious to see what they put on it, comic book wise.
Yeah, and I heard one comic book journalist who apparently had previewed it say there was a lot more comics on it than he thought. And I wish I knew, like, if there was a deep, like, Silver Age thing, that would be very useful to me.
Right. I thought there was going to be more. I thought they kind of implied there was going to be more of that. Like, you were going to be able to go back and read all those. I mean, even the Golden Age stuff, you're going to go back and read in color, the old.
Yeah. But you don't like reading things that way. So for you, that's not. valuable.
Yeah, but I mean, I will look at some of it. I'll explore some of it if I'm if I'm getting the app for the other stuff. That's not a sales point per se for me,
right.
but I am curious to see what's there. I won't turn away the equivalent of free because for me, I'm gonna get it to watch the shows that I'm interested in. So I will take a look at it. It's just I'm not excited.
I'm one of those people who's a bit of a sucker for this deal. So when they say you can get 15 months for the price of 12, I'm like,
right.
Oh, I do it. It would be smart just to wait and pay $8 and watch 1 month, but
right.
I'm tempted. And I like the idea of having all the backlog of all their cartoons and everything at my fingertips and all of that. But
yeah,
I haven't decided whether I'll really do it or not.
I'm gonna wait. I mean, because I said they have a deal going or have had a deal going. I got a couple emails about it. Buying early so you get the extra months or whatnot. I'm gonna wait until it's actually out. I want to hear and see other people talk about it and experience. Does it have a horrible lag? How does the app work? All that stuff. I want to know all that before I invest $100 because what is like $80, right?
Yeah,
I think the ad I saw was $79 or something like that for the
right. If you did basically if you did the 15-month thing, it would be $5 a month,
right? Versus $8.
Versus $8, yeah. But if it's 15 months of stuff you don't want, then it's not much.
Exactly. Well. Or you order it early, right? And it starts out, and then the stuff you were actually interested in doesn't get put up until 6 months in.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they put up a whole bunch of good stuff. You read it all in 1 month, and then you never go back to it.
Right.
Right. The Doom Patrol and the Swamp Thing are kind of tempting to me too.
Right. But I don't know how far out those are.
Yeah.
I mean, those are like, yeah, we're going to do these shows, but I mean, that's going to be, end of 2019 or 2020, I would guess, if it's successful. I mean, and then if they launch this whole thing and
right, it could be gone in 6 months.
Exactly. They pay for that first season, however many episodes of the Teen Titans there is, and then go, I know this isn't going to work for us.
Let's sell this to Netflix instead.
Part of me hopes it isn't successful because I want all of my stuff in one place. And the more, the more fractured this all gets, where I have to have a Hulu account and an Amazon account and a Netflix account. And, it gets out of hand.
Right. Right. And it's kind of silly of me too, because I don't spend much of my time watching TV adaptations of things either.
Exactly.
It sounds great to me. Oh, they're going to do a show called Gotham, and then I watch 2 episodes and move on. But
right. Yeah, I don't. That's kind of how I am too. But
Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing seem designed to tempt me.
Yes. Well, it's like for me, top of my list of things I really like, and it's also top of the list of there's no way. There's no way there'd be a live action Doom Patrol. Come on, there's no way. Quite frankly, I still don't believe it. It's one of those kind of things I have to literally see it before I'm actually going to really believe it's going to be real. So
it'll just be a guy in a wheelchair talking to his screen.
There you go. That'd be funny. Alrighty, let's move on to independent books. What do you want to talk about independent wise?
Well, I know we both got Britannia.
Yes, we did. This is the third installment? Is that right? Is this the third?
Yes, it's the third miniseries. I assume. Yeah. I don't know if it says of 4, but the other ones were 4, so I assume this will be in the same format with the nice covers and the kind of classier thing.
But this is a different artist, right?
It's a very different artist.
Yeah, this is 1 of 4. Yeah, it says on the inside of the cover.
So it's much more. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it all. It's much more kind of standard compared to when they were doing Jose Juan Ripe, who is a very distinctive, unusual looking artist.
Mm-hmm. But it's colored more friendly.
Colored
I remember us having conversations prior about some of the priors of these to get really muddy, which I mean makes a certain amount of sense to some degree because, of course, of the era. I don't know.
Right.
If there's many bright colors and whatnot, but yeah.
But they took it too far. And now they've gone more to your traditional comic book coloring.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I enjoyed it. My initial comparison is it wasn't as, even despite the flaws of the coloring of the other ones, it wasn't as exciting immediately. But it has I like the way it's exploring kind of the social strata of Rome and the Roman Empire. I need to go back and read Roman history. I know that a lot of these emperors eventually get killed by their own soldiers because they're so bad. And I'm like, when is Nero going to get killed? He really
right. Right. Well, I was interesting. Like, this is the first one that doesn't have some sort of, because most of these have had back matter. Not that I've read it all, but most of these have had back matter about whatever the subject is in it. Like the last series had gladiator type stuff in it, so they were definitely in the back.
I did read that stuff. The interesting thing about the history stuff in the back was a lot of it contradicted what happened in the story.
Exactly. This is the reality of what was there. Right. This is my story.
Is what gladiators were really like.
Yeah. Right. Right. For me, it's I like the book. I don't 100% can't tell you why. I mean, I like the character. I like the idea of this being like the first guy to use reason to figure out why things are. You know, he's the first person that's, you know, questioning, you know, are the gods responsible for everything? No, it's you know, clearly if you read the signs or whatever. So I like that, you know, the first detective. I mean, me too. Yeah, I like those aspects. For me, each miniseries is less exciting than the one prior to it, but I still enjoy it. I mean, this one doesn't have anything in it that's super exciting. It's really the starting of a, you know, of a standard detective story in a sense. Right. You know, you just got his boss is incredibly deadly, so that's an intriguing thing about it. Every time you have to engage with Nero, he was a crazy man who, you know, killed people on whim. So, yeah, how do you work for that guy? You can't not work for him, but you don't want to be anywhere near him because he can randomly make this decision, you know. I'm not sure what I think about. I mean, I like the gladiator, the character. I'm not sure what I think of this kind of, you know, his potential pining for. I don't know, that seems a little weird. But
I found the reappearance of the gladiator. I mean, the gladiator was one of the central characters of the last issue. The reappearance of her, and now they're kind of buddies. Right. It kind of reminds me when I was a kid reading Conan, and Red Sonja would show up again, and now they're just buddies, although before there was tension between them or something.
Yeah, yeah, and to some degree, I think it's a bummer that he's gotten rid of his, I don't know, his slave. You know, he has that guy that's his sidekick, his slave, right? His Holmes that he's had this entire time. I mean, you know, to his Sherlock is now gone. So I mean, but this woman is playing basically the same role.
Yeah. Yeah, it's becoming a more easily digestible comic in a way. Yeah. More standard, both in the art and in the story so far. There was a lot, well, we don't know, maybe later on, there was a lot more mixing of is supernatural things happening or not before.
Right.
The weird thing about him being the first detectioner is, didn't he sort of was given his detection powers while being cured by the priestesses of Hestia or whatever?
My understanding is that he wasn't given them, but as in they instructed him. I mean, basically they brought him back from death and from being a broken, you know, post-traumatic stress kind of a person. They brought him back to use him as a tool. So they gave him all this, you know, because they're wise women that can, you know, they know all this stuff about human nature and the way men are, and they basically pass that kind of secret knowledge onto him so he could be their tool, because they used him, you know, originally he was the tool they were using. And then of course Nero finds out that he's of use, and so now Nero is using him, and they can't really argue with the point because he could have them all extinguished at any point. I mean, the last one, you know, he was on the verge of wiping out the virgins, you know, kind of thing. He just couldn't figure out he couldn't figure out how politically to do it. If he could have, he would have, kind of a thing. So I find all that intriguing. I mean, you know, so like I said, there's enough about the comic. I still really, I like it. You know, I'm not dissing it. I just think it's, to me, that the first one is this frightening. There's this monstrous thing that's out there, you know, killing everything out in the wilds of Britain, and and is it a monster, or is it something we can reason,
right,
and they become less that and more quickly, no, this is just somebody, spiking somebody's drink or something, or, making people hallucinate or whatever, and less of the potential of the unknown, I guess.
Yeah, the little sliver of the unknown is becoming smaller and smaller.
Right.
It's fun. I would have no idea this was Peter Milligan if I read it without seeing
Right. It does not have any of the kind of
no
weird,
quirkiness, no
right,
odd angles, but but it's still fun to read.
Yeah.
And Rome, you don't get that many comics set in Rome.
No, for sure. And they, like I said, he does a good job of taking some of the elements, or seemingly elements, of that era and playing with them. I mean, this one, the main story of it is that the armies, the centurions, have their flags, and they have their giant ornament on top of their
eagles.
Right. And those things basically represent Rome, and they all believe there's a physical, spiritual attachment between those and Rome and the emperor. And even if the army loses, as long as they can drag that stuff back with them, everything's fine. But these have been lost. These have been lost in the forests of Germany, amongst the barbarians, who, if I remember correctly, they sack Rome ultimately, right? The Germanic tribes, they storm all the way down, beating the Romans up clear into Italy and into Rome. And
I'm not sure when that happens, because there's also a period where some of them become mercenaries for Rome. Rome eventually had a problem where most of their armies were not Italian anymore.
Yeah.
And they were all these barbarians.
Right.
And so, I would need to.
I don't know. And it doesn't really give us a date. It doesn't it locks us down into this date. But anyway, these
research Nero, but
right. So these things are gone. These things have disappeared, and the detective is supposed to go and find them because, of course, Nero believes he is going to fall because this stuff has, crippled him. So
So I guess that one angle is there's this superstition about these golden eagles, and that's that's the motivating force. But no one in the story seems to believe it, really.
Right. Let's talk Royal City, issue number 13.
Okay.
So what are you thinking?
I'm trying to remember the name of this brother.
Rich? Isn't that Rich?
Is that Rich? Okay, the ne'er-do-well brother. I really liked the last issue, and I like this issue kind of in the afterglow of that in a way. I like this, but I don't know, the other one. And I love the introduction of the unknown daughter of Is it Tim or Tom? I can't.
It's Tommy. Yeah.
Tommy. Been a while since I read this one. So I mean, it's all great. It's great stuff. I was caught. Well, I don't know how much to spoil. We're caught by the revelation of the father's sexuality. Let's say.
Right. We're 2 weeks out. I don't think
by surprise.
Yeah.
And it kind of softened the blow because we've been building up all along about how unfaithful the wife is. But
exactly.
Kind of softened that whole blow, and I don't know what to think about that.
And see, maybe that's why I didn't care for the. I don't know. I mean, part of it is, of course, like I said, it's hard to land the ending to a comic with me. I will admit. I don't like the wind down. This issue to me, though, up until this point, I've really enjoyed the comic. I like the conflict that's in it. Life's not simple. We get this unbeknownst daughter that shows up. That's all really intriguing stuff and whatnot. So it feels to me like there's story to explore and whatnot. This issue, I don't know, it feels like it's cleaning everything up. And so easily. The only conflict that's left is Rich. He's still a drunk loser who was given money by his sister to pay off his debts, and instead he gambles it away, and now he's even in worse trouble. Right. And part of me feels like he's just going to come home and it's all going to be okay. Right. Because this issue was all about everything being okay. It was I mean, not that I don't appreciate the fact that
Yeah.
that this husband and wife who clearly kind of, you know, got married early and have drifted over the years and made separate choices for whatever reasons that they made them and whatnot, that they have found a way to, you know, come out the other side of it. And you go, what, you know, maybe we aren't the perfect married couple. You know, we still love each other and you're still my best friend.
Right.
I mean, I like that, but part of me also says, this is all too easy.
Yeah.
I don't know. So other than Rich here, who I love this cover because he's
the way it seems with Rich, if he decides not to kill himself and he's going to come back and get forgiven again,
right,
that will be a little hard to swallow. I think.
Right. So yeah, part of me feels like he needs to be the victim now. I mean, otherwise it's just too it's too easy. But I mean, you know, like I said, I like the other aspects of it, but it does feel to me like part of me thinks, okay, he just got bored with this. He wrote himself into a corner or wants to do something else and went, yeah, I'm done telling stories here. And suddenly we're done. I mean, because we had this first arc to set all this stuff up. You got the weird, you know, the radio signal and Dad kind of, I don't know, it felt David Lynch-like in him having this stroke and the whole walking down this, you know, the radio,
the radio collection,
right? And well, and it was kind of like a city almost, and all that kind of stuff. And then Tommy with you know, with his, you know, having the headaches and the radio signal and, you know, all that stuff. And now it just feels like, okay, we started to tell a story in the past, and now I'm just done. I don't want to tell the next.
And I thought there was going to be more to work out about the ghost of Tommy, even though he maybe was the memory in everyone, but there was a little play there that seems to have gone away a bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm still enjoying it, but is next issue the last issue? Because that could kill it for me, or it could, you know, win. Or is there 2 more issues?
It's 14 or 15. I don't. Yeah, I don't remember. But it came to a shock to me, the issue that I read where in the back matter he says, you know, this is, you know, if you haven't heard, and there is no back matter in this issue.
Right.
You know, that it's done. And it's like, what? How can it be done? Because, you know, like I said, we had the first arc, and then we had this arc that was a flashback, and then I was assuming that, okay, now we're going to get back to the, you know, to the normal time and then working this stuff out. And in one issue, 90% of it's been worked out.
Yeah. And that the father and the mother are in perfectly good terms at the end, seemingly at the end, is kind of particularly odd. And I didn't think the father was going to live. Anyway.
Right. But I mean, like I said, I'm not disliking it, but this issue didn't ring as true, seemingly, as prior issues have. What else? What else do you want to talk about?
Well, I have 3 more indies left to go. One that I know we both read, and one that I don't, and 2 that I don't think we've read. Why don't we save the one we've read for a little bit?
Okay.
So I've been following Exo Man of War, and kind of in the same vein as Britannia at this point, because it's this historical story of Eric, who becomes Exo later, but back in the Roman times, when he gets kind of shanghaied into being a mercenary in the previous issue for the Romans, and then has these other adventures that lead him to get, I guess he's in Venice. I don't know if Venice in the Roman times was at all like Venice now, but they make it with canals and stuff. So.
Right.
And anyway, people are mistreating him because he's a barbarian, even though he fought for the Romans. And so he has to dive into the canal to escape. And this other character who's been slowly working his way around the world just happens to show up and pick him up in the boat. So it's this fun character thing. And it also has a bit of that Conan feel where, you know, these characters just meet up and become buddies and have an adventure and then separate.
Right.
So I don't know where all this is going and how much it's going to tie into who Exo Man of War is as a person, but it's a fun read, but the same as Britannia. It's nothing special or super deep, except that it has this fun historical setting. It's written by Matt Kint, who is very interesting in his Valiant work, because even though he's doing more mainstream work, he has a very cool clinical way of telling stories. And maybe that is offset when he's doing his own art that gives it emotion or something. But so there's an interesting distance to all of the stuff I've read by him at Valiant, which I've enjoyed. But so not a whole lot more to say about that. But I'm quite happy with Exo Man of War. If it stays in this historical setting for a long time, it would be fine with me. But I don't know how many other superhero fans are enjoying that.
Yeah, and so it doesn't bleed over into a bunch of other of the Valiant books. It seems to me like I go to look at the books and it feels like they're, you know, they're somewhat
they
so
like
heavily
their events.
Yeah,
and I think they're currently having an event, and I've heard some people guess that Matt Kint was avoiding the event by doing a flashback during the event.
Nice.
If so, that was a good move, because if it was all involving an event with these other parts of the universe, I probably would have dropped it, because I can't follow the whole Valiant universe.
Right, exactly. And that's why I've stayed away from a lot of Valiant books, just because of that. So it's interesting that one's been avoiding it. Cool.
Do you have any other indie books?
Yeah, I've got some I'll talk about here. So this is a number one. This is Bone Parish, Cullen Bunn written. And it's Cullen Bunn like. So this is from Boom Studios. There's a new drug in town, and
Cullen Bunn light or like
not light, like. So there's a new drug in town. It's called Ash that people are taking, and it's a hallucinogen. And you basically feel like you're living the life of somebody else. Opening scene reminds me of I don't know why. It reminds me of the original Highlander movie, and that it's this big kind of crowd thing going on. There's a guy standing in the middle of the road, and he's singing a song, and it flashes back and forth between him, kind of drooling and singing this song, and an actual rock and roll concert. And you don't know, what the correlation between the two is until you get like 4 or 5 pages in of this kind of back and forth scene of a guy, standing on the street corner saying, well, he should have waited until he got home to take that. I told him, because he's now in the middle of the road about ready to get ran over while he's living this rock and roll scene. Here's the rock and roll scene, right? But it goes back and forth between that and this guy, on the street, and people in the crowd just think he's some sort of, drunk loser. And they're like, yeah, rock and roll, because they know the song he's singing or whatever. And then he goes on to sell more stuff to the, more kids and whatnot, and explains to them that you got to watch out. You only take so much of it. And then it moves into him calling the guy that supplies him with this drug, and the drug is really popular. They need to make more of it. Well, we're gathering supplies right now. And the guy gets off the phone that was gathering the supplies, and they're in a graveyard, and they're busting into a bunch of graves. They're busting into a poet's graveyard. They've just hit a porn star's, burial grounds and whatnot. So basically, they're harvesting bodies to make this drug, and they don't tell us how it's made. There's one woman that knows how to make it. They're working for a crime family where literally the boss is called Mama, and they're making this hallucinogen that uses the ashes of people, and you experience bits and pieces of their lives. So clearly you want popular people. And one of the mid-range lieutenants of this, up and coming crime family is like, we need to spread out. We need to like go globally. We need to be collecting ash from all over the place to make this stuff and whatnot. And Mom is like, one step at a time. And Mom is not an old person. Mom is a young, middle-aged woman who, I think they call her Mom because she worries like a mother. And somebody from New York, a crime family from New York, has come, and they want to buy them out. We don't want to just buy product. We want to buy you out. We want to buy the process. We want to own it. And she's like, no way, And the twist of the first issue is she has this like guy who's with him all the time, and is like giving her advice and whatnot. and we find out that she is on Ash herself, and her person that's with her is like her lover or ex, or husband or something like that, who is dead, and she is slowly snorting him, and she's gonna run out soon. And he like the hallucinogen warns her, look, there's only a little bit more of me left, and I'm gone. Well, and she's like, well, I'll worry about that later, right? I still need you now. So it wasn't. I mean, it's a horror comic in the sense that they're sniffing up dead people, right? And there is one scene where somebody's having a bad trip, and it's the guy is like, I don't know if he's like in a porn shoot or whatever. He's got these hot women around him, and he's like, yeah, this is all gonna be great. And right as it's getting ready to get down to business, they get like zombie faces and they start chewing on his face. I mean, so there is that moment that's right. Horror, but otherwise it's not horror. I liked it as kind of fun. But I don't know that it's like, it wasn't like, I wasn't blown away by it or anything. But,
right. Given that it's Boom, it's probably a pretty short series, I would assume.
Yeah, it doesn't actually, list it as one of something, and I haven't seen anything, but the art is decent. It's by Jonas Sharif, somebody I don't know at all. But yeah. Well, I'll read it for a few issues to see where it goes from here. But it feels more like it is at this point. It's more, crime, family than it is necessarily a horror comic. And I expected a horror comic because that's largely what Cullen Bunn writes outside of the big two. Normally
that's his usual.
Yeah, other than the Western stuff, and even that has a horror bent to it, the Sixth Gun and that sort of thing. So,
well, he did that Camelot King Arthur kind of thing too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
A little bit. Merlin was actually a demon from hell, but it wasn't played up in a horror way very much.
Right.
But yeah, he's usually in kind of a horror zone, and this could get more and more horrific as it goes on. It sounds like maybe the hallucinations are going to get more and more horrific.
Right. If they all start having bad trips. Yeah.
Maybe the dead are spiritually coming back and eating people or something.
Yeah.
I keep missing these Cullen Bunn things as they come out. I mean, I haven't missed all of them, but some of them slip by without getting much publicity or something.
Right. Not a whole lot of fanfare. That's for sure. Yeah.
Anything else up your sleeve?
So along the lines of horror, one that's been really fun. This is issue number 3 of 4. This is Blackwood. I really like that cover, just the colors of it and whatnot. And this 2-headed monkey is actually alive, running around and whatnot. So this is, like I said, issue number 3. It just really rings of a kind of a classic 80s horror kind of kind of a story where 4 or 5 young kids, in this case, they're students at a college that they got a free tuition from. And once they're there, they find out that I got free tuition because they all have some sort of quasi magical ability, whether it's a sixth sense or most of it is that kind of thing, or they have a weird sense of luck, or they're stuck at the school now. Demons have been broken loose, and unintentionally, it's kind of up to them to try and survive and fix the problem, kind of a thing. And it's just been a fun. It's by Evan Dorkin, written, and Veronica and Andy Fish do the art. I think Andy does the breakdowns, and Veronica then does the does the actual. Oh,
that's unusual these days.
Right. So, and it's not, I mean, it's more of a, she's more of a cartoonist, per se, than being, so whereas it has to do with horror. I mean, there's giants. This woman has risen up. She wants to destroy the Blackwood school that they're at. She's got like a horde of different bugs and worms and all kinds of nasty things that are attacking people and whatnot. But even this, what would be the scary elements, because it's in the style it's in, it doesn't make it terribly frightening. I mean, it's clearly horror, but it's not like, I mean, I don't know. It's creepy, but it's the kind of thing a kid could read, though it's creepy. because the way it's colored and drawn, it never reaches a point of being actually terrifying looking. So it's fun. I don't know. It's just kind of
it looks good. I guess I'll get it in trade or something, but I'm not very clear on Evan Dworkin. I only know a few sort of undergroundish.
Well, right, he does the milk and right because he does the milk and cheese thing, and there's a zombie, right?
What's the one I read? It's about some guys going to conventions or something who all hate each other, but
right. But he also does Beast of Burden, which I really loved. I mean, it's basically, Beast of Burden is a wonderful, like a Call of Cthulhu type stories, but it's all told by animals. It's a group of dogs with a couple cats, and they see all the evil that's going on, and they're trying to save the world, kind of a thing. It sounds goofy, but the art is really excellent. Normally, it is who's the artist normally on? I'm trying to think who. Jill Thompson normally does the artwork, so it's kind of a watercolors of border collies and that sort of thing. There's a new Beast of Burden miniseries that's going to be coming out that is drawn by the guy who did Autumnlands, Tooth and Claw.
Oh, that guy. He's really good. His name right at the moment.
Dewey, right? It's Dewey. Something.
Right, Dewey. Benjamin Dewey.
Yeah. So that's going to be cool. That'll be exciting. I would recommend Beast of Burden, not as a comic to buy for children. Right. That's where I first came across. I'm like, oh, hey, here's a story with dogs and cats. Doing adventures. I thought, oh, I'll get this for Chloe, and this is when Chloe was like, 6 years old or something. I get it, and it's like there's this one dog that has a sixth sense to see dead things, and there's like this. He's having this long conversation with these sheep, and at the end of the issue, the sheep are actually burnt up skeletons that are like zombified, and they don't know they're dead yet. I mean, it's one of those kind of things where they're ghosts but don't know they're ghosts yet, and he sends them on the way. I'm like, oh no, I'm not letting my children read this, because it was cool, but it was definitely frightening. But as a side thing, that's a good comic.
But then this Blackwood one might be okay for middle-aged children.
I mean, if you're
middle readers.
If you're really sensitive to potential bump in the night occult things. I mean, because people get fingers bitten off and stuff like that. And there is some possession.
Love horror and some don't. But
but it's not. But like I said, it's because of the way it's drawn. It's not. It's less realistic, so therefore doesn't hold the same kind of weight as something that if they were trying to draw it looking real,
right?
Kind of a deal. Yeah. Let's see. One other book I want to talk about before we get to the end here. A Walk Through Hell. This is
cover a lot. It's very weird.
Yes, because so it's an X-ray of a guy shoving his own arm down his throat. And in the comic, this happens, not the X-ray, but a guy literally does ram his arm. So I really, really like this comic by Garth Ennis, art by Gordon Zazuka, I guess they say his name. So kind of the premise, there's these two FBI agents who are they're doing an investigation. There's like a serial pedophile murderer that they're trying to catch, and there's like a ring. Supposedly there's one person that's controlling this whole thing. There's a ring of other pedophiles that are murdering themselves supposedly, and one of the two FBI agents on a hunch has kind of got this thing figured out. What started out as just a hunch, and everybody's kind of going with it, and it seems to be working. Is the kind of the premise. And they get to this warehouse. Well, first, other agents get to this warehouse where they're supposed to meet a person that's supposed to give them some information. Their agents go in. They never come out. They've called local law enforcement. Local law enforcement has shown up. The SWAT team was in this warehouse for like 5 seconds. They come rushing out, get back in their SWAT truck, and have not come out since then. And nobody else will go into the place. the detectives get there and they're like, what the heck? You know, you guys are ridiculous. You local law enforcement are a bunch of knuckleheads. So these two agents go in, and as they're going in, they're told not to go into this building. They go in. As they're rushing into the building, the entire SWAT team that's in their truck commits mass suicide. Yeah, just randomly out of the blue, just all pull guns on each other and shoot each other dead. And they rush into this warehouse, and then suddenly they're like knocked out or whatever. And they wake up and they don't know what's happened to themselves. And they discover that neither one of these two agents have pulses. They can check each other's pulse, and they're both seemingly are dead. And they don't know what's happened. They think they're trying to rationalize all this stuff. You know, I've been drugged and whatever. And the way the story is told, you get flashes of them working this case to get up to this warehouse. So you've got this kind of horrific thing that's going on in this warehouse. They have no idea what's going on. They can hear shots ringing off in the distance that they go rushing to find out what it is. It's one of the other FBI agents. And the FBI agent has a gun, and he's shooting himself in the head. More than a quarter of his head is gone, and he's still shooting himself in the head. You know, he's on his knees shooting himself in the head. There are hundreds of casings. So this guy has been shooting himself in the head for hundreds of rounds. Of course, the gun only holds X number of rounds, so they can't rationalize it away. They can't make the guy stop. They ultimately take the clip out of the gun and then jam the gun so it can't work anymore. And the guy still just sits there and keeps squeezing, trying to shoot himself. So they can't explain. They're trying to think, are we both drugged? Am I just drugged? And I'm imagining that you're here with me because you're my partner. So there's this whole bizarre thing that's going on in this warehouse while we keep getting flashbacks as to them working this case. One of the things I really love about the book is the dialogue through the book. It's not real clear. You know, lots of times when you read stories or whatever, people get to finish full sentences, complete entire thoughts before the next person speaks in the comic. That's not how this comic works. It is written like we talk. You know, it's if you're just hanging out with people and talking, lots of times you never finish a thought, or you don't finish a sentence before somebody else starts talking. So the dialogue in it is just wonderful. The two agents, one is a woman, you know, who idolizes other strong women. You know, definitely this is like 2016. So Trump is on the rise. Trump isn't actually mentioned, but that, you know, there is that conversation about this kind of new politics that's coming out, this back to the vulgar stuff. Her partner is a gay Asian man. They talk about, you know, one of their superiors who was like an old school FBI, which, you know, back in his day, you're the type of people we'd be investigating, not this other stuff. So there's this whole element of that going on, the kind of the background and the way it's introduced. It's really just interesting. It just makes these more interesting people because they're having these conversations while they're eating at a diner. They're talking about the case and just kind of stuff that's going on in their lives all mixed together. So it just makes it really feel very real and very intriguing. And then we've got like this whole bizarre, like I said, this whole bizarre pedophile case thing that they're working on, where supposedly this one guy is convincing people to help him steal children, and then they kill themselves. And then we got this weird thing that's going on in this warehouse we have no explanation for. And it's interesting listening to them try to rationalize what is happening. You know, have I been drugged? Is it, you know, I don't know. It's just really, really good. I'm just really intrigued with it.
I assume that's a limited series or a mini series. Also,
I would guess so. Yes, from Aftershocks. I mean, it can't have an infinite.
Go on forever with what's
right. Right. And like I said, it's just got these wonderful, you know, flashbacks. Yeah, there's the scene where the guy literally shoves his arm, you know, down his own throat. They're questioning him. He's the link. This is the guy, the link that is telling them who to talk to next, who's the Ling reader of this whole thing. And then after he's told them all that stuff, they leave him alone for a few moments, and then he kills himself because he says everybody's been killing themselves because that's what they've been told to do. And he kills himself by ramming his own arm down his throat. So
it seems like it's got to be supernatural based, but
yes. Yeah, well, and that's what it does seem like, but you're never sure. And they do meet the guy at the end, the guy that's supposedly doing all this stuff, and he's uninterested in talking to the guy. He just wants to talk to the woman because she's the person with the intuition. She's the super detective. You know, so there's that whole kind of psycho killer, you know, that you see in a lot of books and shows kind of thing that looks like going on. And the covers have just been really intriguing. The next cover it's a birdhouse with a coat hung on it. I don't know. It just, to me, that image alone is just really intriguing.
Right.
What does that, what does that mean? What does that, I don't know. It's a really good book. It's just really intriguing because it's just so strange. And like I said, the dialogue, I just love that type of dialogue where it's, because it feels more genuine than what we get in a lot of stories where everybody gets to give their clear thoughts and stuff. So, yeah.
And it sounds like Garth Ennis with all the twistedness.
Right. So definitely. Yeah, that's really, I think that's it, other than the one other book.
Well, I thought I'd mention this one then.
Sure.
Savage Dragon, which is always an odd book because it's a mix of his superhero obsessions, his politics, his sexuality, or his enjoyment of putting sexual things in books. And it particularly stood out to me that lately, at least, or maybe he always does, he's been making the splash page look like a Marvel's 1960s splash page.
Right.
Then in this issue, every other double page spread or so, it looks like Calvin and Hobbes. But meanwhile, we have the mother of these children who is sexually voracious and can't stop thinking about sex no matter what's going on, even when her children have disappeared. And we just get all of these kind of weird mix of stuff. So I just wanted to mention how unusual and strange. And another thing that you might look at the cover and think, hey, this would be great for kids. You might even thumb through, and if you hit the right page, oh, Calvin and Hobbes.
Right.
I always want my kids to enjoy Calvin and Hobbes. But definitely a hard R and occasionally X-rated stuff in here.
Yeah, it's amazing that he has a career now, in some sense or another, basically just putting out whatever whatever's tickling his fancy of the day. It seems to be
his id on Vision, but it's a weird id because of I don't know. It's almost like he's a kid who got off on those Harvey Kurtzman Annie Fanny comics.
Yes.
At the same time, loved Kirby and Lee comics, and at the same time, is a huge fan of Barack Obama and hates Donald Trump. I mean, it's just kind of
just
you would not expect coming together.
Right. And I mean, like I said, and then he just kind of throws it all out there. I mean, I love his comic book tribute stuff because he's clearly doing lots of that. With him doing stuff that's clearly Kirby-esque, and he's clearly paying homage to that, and then the mock-ups of other stuff that he does and whatnot.
Yeah. He's not lost it as an artist. I think he's stayed in the vein he always was in, but he's gotten better and better at it. And when he switches over to the slightly Calvin and Hobbes look, it still looks like his work, and it looks like that. And there's even a Kirby monster in which these Calvin and Hobbes kids are fighting. So it is impressive, and to pump out that monthly, no one does a monthly comic, and he's writing and inking and drawing it.
Right.
He does have a colorist. It's kind of an amazing feat.
Yeah.
And soon he's on 236, so I assume he wants to beat Dave Sims' Cerebus that went to 300.
There you go.
All done by one person.
Right.
So I've been reading it for 10 or 12 issues now. I don't think I want to read all 230 issues.
Oh, I can't imagine. I mean, it's not my thing. I appreciate it for what it is. It's definitely not my thing. But yeah, just kind of crazy that's been around as long as it has, and just continues to churn along. So yeah, for sure. So we got to talk about the book.
Then yes, this is a little, again, to talk without spoiling too much. Maybe we just have to spoil it, but
I don't think it's possible. Oh, I mean, okay, so I did not see it coming.
Me either.
Absolutely 100%. One of my favorite characters. I mean, and really the only probably genuinely morally righteous person in the book.
Right.
I
always kind of rooted for him more than the wife, although I like her as a character.
Oh, yeah, Alana's awesome. I mean, she's awesome as a character, but clearly she has her she has her failings and she succumbs to those failings. Whereas,
he's always striving,
right.
And he seemed like a great person to have as a father. So to lose him as a father,
Yeah. Well, and there's
tragic.
there's this great father moment in there. There's this moment of, them at the beach,
Right.
Hazel and Marco at the beach, and she's like, talking about her birth and about how it was the greatest moment of his life and all this stuff. And she's like, that's not me. I'm not gonna do that. And he does the great parent thing by saying, hey, that's okay. You just be the kindest person you could be, and I'm going to be so happy. It's just this great enriching moment for your child. You're not putting any judgment on the kid about what they want to do with their lives or whatever. And we're spoiling the hell. We're going to spoil this. I don't because there's somebody talking about.
I think if you read it, you've already realized we've spoiled.
Right, and he gets killed being the better person.
Right.
He could have just caved the Will's head in with that shield, and he realizes, no, that I am not that. I'm,
right.
I fight to protect. I do what I have to do to protect. And I beat this person. I don't need to do anything else to them because the people that matter aren't in danger anymore. I expected Prince Fourth to get whacked. That doesn't surprise me at all. But
I'm a little nervous because he was also one of my favorite characters, not in a positive way, but in a negative way.
But he definitely these are the influencers of the story.
Right.
So we've had let's talk about this also. So they announced at the end of this issue that they're taking at least a year hiatus. They're calling it intermission because that's cute and romantic to call it intermission.
Right.
And then they're supposedly going to be back after a year or whatever. People have told me to cool my jets that I don't have to worry about it. They're going to be back, but I don't know.
To me, the at least a year
exactly
makes me nervous. It's not like, oh, we have a definite plan. We're coming back,
on this date,
August 1919.
It's when we're feeling it again, right. We'll come back.
And what if one of them is feeling it and the other isn't?
Right. Or they get a gig doing something else, or, there's
all kinds of life changes can happen in a year.
Exactly. Plus. Exactly. Somebody could have children and that keeps them from doing the work, or there's just all kinds of things. You could get in a car accident, and there's just tons of stuff. So I'm nervous about that. And my other thought is, okay, we've had other big breaks from them before, and when we come back, like 4 years have gone by, right? So when they come back and they want to, the next adventures of Hazel, because the story is about Hazel. She's our narrator. She's the
right. I've wondered, is the story about Hazel or not? I'm always.
Well, she's at least the narrator, right?
She's the narrator, and these events must be affecting her life, obviously.
Right. So we'll come back, and we're going to get her back because she's the narrator. She's the one that's narrating the story. She narrates the deaths and everything else that happens in it. Right. How much time is going to be by? We've got more story to tell. Well, are we suddenly going to jump and she's 20 something?
Right. Right. If we wait, he says he already has plans. What was it? The splash page or something for the next issue.
Right. The opening page. Because the opening, right. That's one of the kind of, call it what you want, gimmicks or whatever you want to call it. The opening page typically is something, shocking. Right. This one wasn't so much. It's the second page that's shocking, but typically, that's, somebody giving birth, somebody sitting on the toilet, the giant faced women from Sextillion, it's all right. Yeah. But I do appreciate the few pages of white to let us digest before we jump into the back matter. I do appreciate that, but
those were only 2 pages of white instead of how many pages of black did they do in that other issue?
Right, quite a bit. Yeah. And my non-criticism, this book reads so fast.
Yes.
You pick it up and it's like seconds later you've consumed it, and I can't complain about it because I love every second of it.
Yeah.
But it's so damn fast.
In a weird way, that this issue was so perfectly executed that that it makes it even more painful that it's going away.
Yes.
But it's good to end on a high note, or leave them wanting more, as they say.
I don't know that I want more. I was really bummed. No, I don't want to end. I mean, who am I kidding? I love the issue. I want more. I love all the characters in it. But I had a huge stack. This is one of the first comics I read of my stack this week, and I read it and I was done. Because I knew if I read anything else that day, it wasn't going to stack up. There's just no way. Right. It's not even come close to competing with, Yeah,
it's definitely the best comic in my stack by far.
Yeah. And like I said, the emotional punches of it and whatnot, just, man. I'm looking over the comments, and Gordeval is saying that he began reading Saga due to issue 54, and he's not enjoying it much. He doesn't like Alana and Marco, and hates Hazel's monologue.
Right, but after issue 54 came out, he bought issue 54 and then read that and then read backwards. And I guess, and he says he stopped at 39, and then he read 1 through 9, and maybe he still hates it from 1 through 9. But
I know there are
Saga. That was a very strange choice to read backwards. A very strange one to read backwards, since it's all about the building of the emotional connection to the characters.
Yeah, and I know there are people, I mean, who 100% do not care for Saga at all. I mean, I think it's amazing. I think it's next level comics, but I get that it's not some people saying because
it's a very specific kind of story,
right?
And it caters to a certain kind of taste in a way. There's always those shock pages and
right.
The idea of a story that kind of is a soap opera that goes on and on is not to everyone's taste either.
Right. But I love it. Silent Stag is here, and he says that the opening page will be Hazel as an adult killing someone. He's calling it, so I'll remember that.
Not like your father.
I'll remember that. I don't know. I mean, it's gonna be so. There's gonna be just massive loss. So in the last like 2 or 3 issues, every couple in this comic has lost their other half.
Right. Is the person who was becoming the lover of Prince Robot, is she still alive?
Yes.
Oh, she is. Okay. I thought maybe she was killed too.
No, she didn't get hurt at all. Matter of fact, she takes out, isn't she the one that takes out, her or the reporter take out the mole-faced woman who was torturing the will. Alana gets
the other reporter is dead. Yeah. So
right.
One member of every couple is dead.
Yeah. So I just kept thinking about this year plus break. Either they're going to have Hazel, way into the future, and we're going to have. It just feels like to me we're going to lose what I would consider stuff that they would want to be telling story about. The emotional damage of working through, losing your other half, and who knows, maybe Marco isn't dead. Right.
That would really piss people off, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a part of me that wishes the characters would live, but yeah, I mean, it is science fiction. There could be some future medicine.
Well, and magic. Who's to say that his heart and chest
he does magic, and he's an alien. Who knows what organs are in the part of his body that was
right? I mean, but I have to admit that's an awfully big hole, and that's a lot of blood. But
yes.
So I'm assuming he's dead, because otherwise it doesn't have the emotional impact. And
those white pages seem to imply he's dead too.
Yeah, and it would be kind of shitty of them to suddenly come back a year from now and he's fine. He got better. I don't know.
Very annoying. Well, it occurred to me we've had ghosts in the past. Could he come back as a ghost?
Yeah, but
that was specific to one race, I suppose.
Race on that planet, right?
But there's stuff we don't know about Marco and his magic race. I don't know. They could. I assume they won't do that, but it just popped into my head as
the only character that we've seen that looks like they were in the process of dying and not die is the Lion Cat. Every other character that has been in a death situation has been dead.
Right.
So I would assume these are all permanent deaths.
You know why sometimes I don't take so seriously as to whether this is really Hazel's story is because she often is narrating stuff that there's no way she could know about.
Well, unless she's just telling her family's story.
So then I start feeling of her as kind of a gimmick. She knows everything about what the will is doing and other characters who are not there.
Well, see, I don't assume that. I mean, I assume that she's the narrator of her life and moments that get her to be where she ultimately ends up being. Um, and I'm assuming that she gets some of this stuff through being told by her parents as she gets older what some of this stuff is, and some of it is it's clearly not narrated because she's not narrating the whole thing. She just kind of makes a general statement of, life gives us this,
Right.
and then there's stuff that kind of represent that happens that clearly she's not involved in, but still are affecting her life in some way. And all that stuff that's happened with the will and the brand and all of that stuff. I mean, you're right. Them going out and harvesting the dragon semen has nothing to do with Hazel whatsoever, but it still moves the whole story of affecting her life.
And well, like, I mean, it's possible that Alana has told Hazel all about her sex life, but it's also possible that she did not know about some of the things there, or things that the two reporters were up to, or stuff that the will is doing, or other events with various characters that we've been following. So I was just realizing when I said originally, is it Hazel's story? Sometimes I sort of interpret Hazel's narration as more a poetic gimmick, or not gimmick, but a poetic kind of license, and wonder if this is really her story or just the story of the whole group.
Yeah.
But time will tell, I suppose. Hazel's developed more as a person now than she has in the earlier parts of the story, of course.
Well, right. So,
Gore Vidal mentions that Vaughn tied issue 50 in with the first issue by using Hazel's monologue from the premiere, which I didn't recognize because it's been so long since I read the first issue, and Gore's read it recently.
Right.
He also says he likes the Will character, and I used to like the Will, but now that he's killed my other favorite character, I'm less into it.
Right. Well, but I get why he did it, though. I mean, this has all been for him.
Been his getting his honor back, right? His job.
Well, it's not just that. It's this torture. I mean, so he was simply doing a job, just trying to make his money, and it was just going to be the big thing. His lover gets murdered by Prince Moore. So it's, you're right. So it's a revenge. It's a revenge for him. And the fact that Marco and Alana happen to be around is all secondary. I mean, really, he was saying, look, I'll deal with you later. I want to collect the bounty so I can go back to being who I was, but it was all about killing the prince at that moment. Right. Marco just continued to stay in the way.
But the prince is now already dead, but Marco is someone he was hired originally to kill, I think. Or was he just hired to kill Hazel? I can't remember. But I assume he was hired to kill the whole family.
Kill or collect them, one of the two, yeah.
But he's a killer.
Yeah.
Silent Stag says something interesting. He says, I take it as her telling us a story about the events that pass by word of mouth. So who knows if she's telling the complete truth? It's like the telephone game.
Right. And I agree with that too. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just reading because Silent Stag had another comment, and we have to remember that everything that happens in this comic is because Hazel exists. This is why it is her story. She is the remedy to a war, which is the basis of the story. That's true. That's a very good point. She is the catalyst of everything. None of this story could happen without her conception.
Right.
It all comes down to that.
Yeah.
I think Silent Stag used to be Devin, and he's had a bunch of different names. I think that might be. And I know he loves Saga. That's the comic that brought him into comics, I think. Yeah. If I have the right person.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think that's a good choice because that's how I is too. That's kind of what I was trying to say with Hazel is I don't know that we're getting 100% the truth. We're getting a version of this is how I got. Yeah, you're right. It is Devin. Okay, so yeah, so this is how I got to where I was and whatnot. And I like a lot of those moments. I mean, to me, those are good emotional beats. In this issue in particular, the fact that, you know, I get to live this life, but some of us don't. And then you get that, that page of death,
Right.
It's just like, oh, like I said, I love Marco and Alana. I like them for different reasons, but Marco is the soul.
Yeah.
And I just, to me, I was crushing to see him go down. So it's like,
Yeah.
just like,
It
wow.
really was hard.
Yeah.
And I was laughing a second because Devin said, "Don't worry, next week I'll have a new name by next week."
Right. Right.
It's a fluid identity, I guess.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Saga is in many ways the best comic being published. But if everything was like Saga, I wouldn't like it at all.
Oh, right.
Sorry, I got something.
Yeah. It is uniquely its own thing. And the whole year break and whatnot. This is a comic that still is, a $2.99 comic, has been from the beginning. Well, almost all of the other Image books that start out at $2.99 have gone up to $3.99. They've all changed the price point so they can continue to be successful just doing their one comic.
Right.
And clearly Saga is successful enough that Fiona Staples doesn't have to sell artwork. She doesn't have to do commissions. Right. She's making good money just producing a comic. What does this do to their sales? And what does this do to everybody who is selling this comic? If you're a brick and mortar store,
some podcasts, this worry that will have a financial impact.
I mean, I don't know what this. It's unfortunate that
I think even more of the money is in the trade sales of Saga.
Is it?
So will this even be noticeable to the people buying trades, or will?
Yeah, I don't know. It's unfortunate that Ryan's not here because you can usually give me sales numbers pretty quickly. I don't know what Saga sells. I don't know how many thousands of issues it sells in singles.
My impression from some stuff I heard is that there's certain shops that make a huge amount of income off of Saga. It's not like every shop in the United States, but certain shops that cater to a certain kind of reader, Saga's like their biggest book.
That would be scary. That would be scary to be one of those retailers and suddenly pick up this issue and go, what?
Well, and you can't depend on just one book.
Well, yeah, clearly.
They can go away at any time. But yeah, it's I don't think Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan should have to worry about that.
Oh no, it's not their responsibility.
We want them to do what's creatively best for them.
Yeah. And I totally get the idea of needing, we've gotten consistently, we have gotten 54 issues. And I say consistently because when they say they're taking a break and they're coming back on this time, they have always taken their break and come back at the time they said they're going to come back. It wasn't like it was wishy-washy or whatever. And I've been perfectly happy with that. I love reading it in singles. I love reading it the way I'm getting. I love it serialized. I mean, at some point, if it ever ends, I probably will go buy some super expensive deluxe oversized behemoth version just to have it too. But I really enjoy reading it by the month.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's written so that both kinds of readers can enjoy it, which is an incredible talent that Brian K. Vaughan has. And it's to me, it's the start of what I see as the Image Renaissance. I mean, I know there was good books before and everything, but not only did it kind of excite people, I think it was right after that everyone's saying, well, what's the new number one from Image? What's the new number?
Right.
And it set this pattern of taking little breaks and I think it was one of the first ones that had the $9.99 first volume of the trade. And I think it was one of the first ones that did a double issue at the single issue price for the first issue. Yeah, I think it set a lot of these patterns that Image now follows. And I have realized in maybe the last year or two, I no longer jump on every new number one from Image. It's gotten that pattern has gotten long in the tooth. There's too many things like Saga that I'm already following. I can't just continuously jump on new ones. Exactly.
Yeah, I said it's an amazing book. I do hope it comes back. I wonder. That year plus though does make me nervous. Is that there's just so much in life that can happen.
Well, and I don't know any. I would think that Brian K. Vaughan will come back to it, but I don't know enough about Fiona Staples except that she's quite young, which to me makes her more of a wild card as to whether she'll really want to come back. But she's been very consistent so far, and she's never seemed to cut corners on art or anything like that.
No. No, I mean she's developed a style too that allows her to be quicker at producing what she does.
Right.
I mean, but yeah, I'll just be curious to see what else she does. Is this break really a break where she does know stuff, or are we going to see her beyond a cover here and there? Are we going to see other stuff out of her? I'd be curious to see.
Not to be snobby, but at one point I was kind of upset that she took a break to do Archie. I mean, right? I understand she loves Archie, and she did perfectly nice Archie artwork, but it just, to me, didn't seem like a huge good use of her free time.
Well, that's the privilege of having a successful book, right? Is that she can then choose to go and do something that that means something to her, but doesn't. I mean, it wouldn't be the same consumer reading Archie that's reading Saga. Right. So
she doesn't have to make the perfect career move. She just has to keep coming back to Saga often. Right.
Exactly. But in the talking about single issues and stuff like that, since are we done talking Saga now?
Sure. Yeah.
So I've noticed a rash of announcements from quite a few independent books that are just going to, I don't know if I want to call it, they're not trade. I can't call them trade sales. I guess original graphic novels or whatever. Motor Crush has decided that they're not doing single issues anymore. They're not doing the monthly book. It's too hard. I've seen other creators complain about the fact that after they're done with the books they're on now, that the next books they do will not be monthly issues because the demand is too hard on them physically to do that and whatnot. And here in the past they've Lazarus is moving to a quarterly book as opposed to a not quite a an original graphic novel, but close to it. Astro City is moving to that now, from singles to that. What do you think of that?
I'm not a huge fan of it. I guess there's two levels of it. It seems like doing the single issues gives people incremental deadlines, and that seems like a good thing to me. And so I worry about procrastination setting in. If you look at novelists, I mean, some novelists are great at pumping out their novels, and other novelists, especially once they get like a big contract or whatever, then they have trouble finishing their novel, and it can take many more years than planned. So I think that there's something nice about the comic book system of you've got this monthly schedule, or with something like Saga, you have probably 8 or 9 issues to do a year, but you have that regularity. And also I've understood that one thing, that there's a synergy between singles and selling trades. You get some buzz going through the singles, and that helps the trades. Rarely do you have something that sells really bad in singles that then sells incredibly well in trades. I mean, I know that the trade sales are now a larger part of the pie. But part of it is maybe my personal, I still enjoy, especially when it's like Saga.
Same here.
I also like to buy some stuff just in trade now, and there's quite a few image books that I just decide to trade. There's certain image writers that I decide I'll just read them in trade, like Jonathan Hickman and Rick Remender and a few others. So yeah, I just wonder if it's going to be harder to market them, I guess. What about any other thoughts on that?
See, for me, I like serialized comics. I like the monthly comic, whatnot. I totally get the the grind and everything as far as that goes. That's why I never complain about other than I'm enjoying something a lot. You know, the breaks in some of these
Right.
books, you know, that they take, so clearly they can recharge, get caught up, whatever they need to do, and stuff like that. And I'm intrigued by the idea if the creators are going to produce something with the idea that they've got 60 pages or 120 pages to make a story, beginning and end of
Right.
that chapter or whatever, versus I've written a bunch of singles, which each single issue, if successful, typically has a, you know, a up and a down to, you know, I mean, it has a, you know, it's structured to be somewhat like a single issue, but they're also trying to write it to make sense for the trade. I'm hoping that if they're going to go to original graphic novels, for instance, if that's how they're going to treat it, that's created that way. It's created with the idea that to write it like a book as opposed to 20-page beat. Do you know what I mean? Right. And so I'm intrigued by that from a crafts standpoint as to what, you know, what would that story, you know, look like, you know, because you could spend a lot more time, because I'm intrigued with the idea of spending a lot more time on the long shot, which you on a 20-page comic book that comes out monthly, you cannot do. Or if you do it, people complain that, oh my gosh, 5 pages of my 20 pages were this long shot. And I, you know, I love the you know, the Stanley Kubrick, you know, 2001 Space Odyssey, those big, long, drawn out, if you're going to use film as a kind of an example of what you could do in comics. Right. I like that. And I want that explored. You can't do it in you can't do it in a monthly comic. It's too hard to do, but it can be done in something that was a lot of pages. So part of me is intrigued and excited by the idea if writers are going to use, if not writers, just the creators in general are going to use those elements to create the long shot. Cool. If it's going to be basically written like a trade, then not cool. Give me a monthly comic, because like I said, I like the series. I like reading a little bit at a time, being able to think about that little bit that I've read, come back 30 days or whatever and read a little bit more and think about it. And of course, Eric Lombach's review has pointed out to me that I can buy a trade and only read 20 pages and set it down and come back a month later and read again.
But that doesn't have the same excitement.
No,
up individual issues.
No, not at all. So that's how it is for me, because I've read some. I haven't read a lot of manga, but some of it that I have read that has been written with like 200 pages or whatever. And they do that. They do the long shot. And I'm like, wow, that's something that's missing from Western comic books. They don't, nobody's going to do that.
Well, and European comics have traditionally been written, I think, in 40 or 50 page chunks. Right. And the other thing about European comics is the artists spend a lot more time on the art. And sometimes I can see the benefit of that. Sometimes I actually can't. But so I have thought that working on a graphic novel format might be particularly good for someone who's an artist writer. And, you know, if they have well, probably in the American market, 100-page story to tell, and they spend, but who's going to pay for it, I guess is the question. But if they can spend a whole year working on that and get everything just right and their vision just right, it could produce some masterpieces. On the other hand, it could also produce these people who, you know, have trouble ever finishing. I mean, one of the problems with writer's block is too much freedom, I've always found.
Yeah. Well, and then I also wonder, how do some of the artists, I mean, because the writers can go write a number of things, right?
Right.
Are seemingly able to write a number of things. How does it seems like a larger risk to the artist.
Yes. Well, in some, like, my gut feeling is Greg Rucka can write in larger chunks pretty well. But with Kurt Busiek, I feel like he might be better in the 22-page chunks. That's his, at least the stuff I've read by him that I've liked the most. His most recent Batman Creature of the Night was written in 3 very long chunks, and each chunk just felt too long. And then it felt like the ending did not support the length of it. I don't know. Did you read that whole thing?
Yeah.
I forgot, or I did, because of gaps in my own schedule. I never got around to publicly talking about the 3rd book in that series because I was pretty pro on it. But I do think that was the wrong length for him. So it worries me that his Astro City is going to graphic novels, but he may prove me wrong. I mean, he's a very, very talented writer.
Yeah. But that was the independent news thing that kind of caught my eye this week, because it seemed like I've seen a
interesting thing.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people, talking about going to the, ditching monthly comics and going that. And I understand the reasons for doing it, but and that
must make some comic book shop owners nervous too.
Right. I just, but like you're talking about, the single issue keeps the buzz going about the comic until the trade hits.
Right.
It seems to me like the person that shares the most data on that is the person who writes Wayward.
Jim Zub.
Yeah. I mean, he's awesome in how much data that he allows all of us to see. And clearly that's how it works for that. The singles don't sell a whole lot, but it keeps people talking about it enough and keeps people paid enough that then they can, they're making more and more money on the trades. I mean, that's where the real.
Yeah. It seems to me, even if you can break even on the singles, it might be worth it for the publicity and the buzz that it creates for your trades. Because people like us are the canaries in the coal mine. And, and with YouTube and Twitter and everything, we incrementally, hundreds of us have some influence, I think. And also other people who are reading comic book reviews online, you don't very often see trade reviews. You mostly see single issue reviews. So it just follows a nice rhythm every week to put out reviews.
Yeah. And we've all talked about the fact that this kind of stuff, us talking about whatever, inevitably I buy books that I wouldn't have bought except other people were talking about them.
Oh yeah, totally. There's so many books I buy that came from other people.
Yeah. So I don't see how that happens if once a year you see a book from somebody. I don't know, unless you're super excited about it. I mean, it clearly does happen. I mean, it just. Yeah.
There's a comic book store owner who's a columnist. He writes Tilting at Windmills. And I've seen him a number of times tell people that they have to have singles out to help promote their stuff. And he particularly is upset, or that's not the right word, but particularly critical of Fantagraphics, who doesn't do very many single issues anymore. Right. Be interesting to know if he's right. I mean, is Fantagraphics perfectly happy without putting single issues out and just sells their trades to the bookstores and the...
Well, and we've talked about that kind of too, that the market is changing. If the market's going to the bookstores, then that's where the real market is now. And single issues and the comic book stores are potentially, they aren't as important as they used to be.
Right.
Then maybe they've decided economically they can bypass the comic book store. They'll sell some in the comic book store, clearly, because it's not like comic book stores don't sell trades. But
yeah, the question is, are they right? Or is the idea that they need the single issues to keep the buzz going? If the single issues really do help even if they're making their money on trades.
Yeah.
So they may or may not be throwing the babies out without the bathwater.
Right.
There are a few more from the mainstream publishers. Every year there's a few more digital first ones. And I think there's one that's now been announced by Marvel that will be digital first and then go to trade, not go to floppy and then trade. I'm not sure what it is.
Right. No, I mean, there was a whole set of them. I think, isn't Jessica Jones going that way? It's going to be single issues, and so is Power Man, and so is Iron Fist. All three of those are going to be written digitally, and then after a trade's worth is produced, then they will actually produce a trade. It'll never be in single issues.
And I heard one person on a podcast I was listening to implying that Marvel has found they get a big boost in their digital sales whenever a Netflix show comes out.
Oh, I bet.
So that might be why it's Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, things that are on Netflix. They might think, well, why? This is where our audience is. They're the digital audience, is the TV audience.
Well, that would be like my kids. They sit there on their Kindle, they're watching the Netflix show, and then go, oh, that, you know, what else can I find about that character? And then of course there's, you know, there's these comics sitting out there. So
it might be very specific things. There might be a lot of different models for a lot of different things.
Right.
I hope there'll still be a lot of things that work best by starting with us serial readers and then moving into trades.
Yes. At least until I'm dead. Then after that, I guess the art form can go wherever it's going to go. So, or until I'm old enough, I can't get down into my basement where my comic collection is at or something. I don't know, but you know,
you'll pay your grandchildren money to bring your comics up from the basement for you.
I will probably. That's true. So, and then when I die, I'm going to have them all compacted to make a coffin for myself to be put on some giant pyre and burnt in or something. I don't know, but anyway.
Gorvidal's asking about the seeds, but we actually were talking about comics from the previous Wednesday.
Right.
I did not get the seeds.
I did. I have,
but I didn't get it, and I didn't see it at the shop.
Yeah, I have it ordered. It's at the top of my list to read going into next week because I'm really curious, because that's a double-edged sword.
I know, the Ann Nocenti versus the David Aja.
Yeah. So, yeah. I've heard interesting.
Ann Nocenti has been hiding her brilliance recently, and we'll bring it back out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. And like I said, I'm always torn. I mean, if I go back and read those old Daredevils, were they really that good, or was it just the time? I really loved that. You know, read the Frank Miller, jumped on the Frank Miller stuff, enjoyed it, and then thought that her stuff was great too, going across that. So I don't know. But, you know, both me and you have tried quite a bit of her
DC
modern
work.
DC stuff, and it's been rough.
Katana and Witchboy, and did you do Catwoman for a while or something else?
Yeah, something like that. Yes, she was on Catwoman for a while. She took over Catwoman for a while during the New 52.
And the nature of her bad writing was particularly striking.
Yes.
Almost sounded like someone who, I don't know, was putting her scripts in a blender or something.
Yeah, the Katana stuff was really not good. Though the Witchboy was weird.
Yeah.
There's aspects of that I liked, but I don't know how much of that was the art versus, you know.
I remember liking the art, but I don't think I made it to the end, even though that series didn't last long.
As I said, there was no end. But yeah, so I'm like I said, I'm looking forward to checking that out, but see what that's like. Yeah. Alrighty. Anything else we want to talk about?
No. I guess let me know if you do decide to do it next week. I know your schedule's insane.
Right.
Otherwise, hopefully I can join you in September or October, thereabouts, when my schedule
gets
better.
Great. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on and talking. Always a pleasure to talk books with you. We always seem to get into the interesting stuff and whatnot. So always appreciated. And yeah, with that, we're going to call it a night because it's way past my bedtime with my current 4 a.m. work schedule. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Even on Sunday?
No, on Sunday I don't have to go in that early. I'm kind of on call on Sundays, but
you still have to go in eventually?
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah, for right now. So hopefully that all changes. But at any rate, this whole week I've been working 12-hour shifts though, so I'm just ready to sleep and sleep. Any rate, once again, thank you for coming on. Thank you guys for chatting in the comments. Everybody who watched live, always appreciated, and always appreciate have your input. And anybody who watches this thing after the fact, thanks for watching too. And until whenever the next time is, we'll see you then. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.